Hi, I'm Lois Powell. And I'm Susan Schuler, and we're here to share tips, tricks, ideas, and resources to help you discover what's your story.
Hey Lois, how you doing?
I'm great, Susan. I have to tell you, I've been having so much fun.
What have you been working on?
I've been working on that super secret project you and I are doing.
It is fun, isn't it?
And we're going to be telling people about that in the not too distant future.
Yes, it's our homework for a podcast, but it's really stretching my genealogical muscles.
Yes, we've been having a lot of fun looking at different areas.
Different records I've never in my family been able to work on before, different languages, different areas, lots of fun.
Different cultures, that's part of the fun of genealogy.
Mm-hmm. Sure is. Well, you know what else is fun?
Free sites.
Free sites.
That's what I thought, because we love free genealogy sites.
We
we
sure
love
do.
free, period.
Well, I feel like we spend a lot of money on genealogy in general. So when you can find something for free, it's kind of a bonus.
Especially the good stuff. And that's what we want to tell you about today.
Absolutely. So we've compiled a list of genealogy sites that are free of charge that you should be incorporating into your research.
If you're not already. And we might have a nugget or two you don't know yet.
Perhaps.
But we'll start with the big one.
Let's go.
I think pretty much everybody knows about Family Search, but
I hope
certainly
so.
It is one of the biggest. It is the world's largest record repository for genealogy. That's quite a statement for them to be able to say. But they hold over 2 billion records from 238 countries. So you have a good chance of finding a relative in there. It actually began in the 1920s by the Genealogical Society of Utah to help the church members with family history. And these are, of course, the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Mormons as we know them.
Mm-hmm.
And they really have an interesting mission called creating one big tree, so that any tree you put up there is public and will be incorporated, because we all descend from one giant tree. Now, some of us may be more comfortable with that concept than others of us. So you have to be sensitive to what you choose to put up there, or whether you just want to do the research. But because it's free, you get to make those choices.
Yeah.
And they say it will always be free. They are now much more focused on digitizing records. We can thank the pandemic for moving that along much faster.
I actually saw this morning on a news site that they've finished.
Oh.
That every record that they've had on microfilm is now digitized. And I guess I need to do a little more research into finding out what that means. Like, will they all be available at a family research library? Will they soon all be online?
And that's an important difference, because depending on the agreement they have with the town or the facility, wherever they got the records for, they may not be able to put them on their website. You may have to go to one of their family history libraries. For those of you in our area, we have 3. We have one in Largo, we have one in Newport Richey, and we have one in Lutz. And you can go there for free. You do, I believe, have to check their hours because of, again, the situation we're in. But they also have on-site printing, which you can do for free.
It's always nice to make a little donation if you are successful at their area, or just, for their supplies. But it's not expected. I just think it's a nice thing to do when you're there. I've spent quite a bit of time at the one in Newport Richey. And everyone seems to be very, very helpful.
I've had very good success also with the Lutz facility.
Yeah.
But there's books, there's genealogies, there's wiki, there's so much more on the website as well. And if you want a tour of that website, well, just call us here at the library, and we can arrange for that and give you information. Or you can take the big trip. You can go to the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, to me, that would be the trip of a lifetime. I think I would like to go there and probably set up a cot and spend about a week, but I don't know if they would let me do that.
Probably not. But I hear there's a hotel right near the library for that purpose.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So that's the big one, and most of you, I'm sure, know all about it.
Yeah. So if you're on the Family Search website and they have a little sign there that you can't see the original record, you may be able to see it at a local family history center like Lutz or Newport Richey or Largo. But I would call ahead and make sure they're open and ready for business before taking the trip there.
Absolutely. What else is free?
Well, the US GenWeb project, you can find it at usgenweb.org, and it was established in 1996 by a group of genealogists who all shared the desire to create free online resources for research. Originally beginning with online directories of text-based resources, their vision has grown into a network of over 3,000 linked websites, all individually created and maintained by a community of volunteers. And you can find a variety of country and state resources, including maps, transcriptions, photos, documents, and other links. So that's a handy one to check out.
That sounds like a great website. I personally have to say, I haven't used it yet, but I'm going to after today, now that I
Check
know
it
about
out.
it. I will. And on top of that, of course, we all have search engines, right? Everybody, I hope everybody knows Google. That should not be something new to people.
Yeah.
But are you familiar with Google Books and Google Earth? These are both great things. There's a lot of free digital books out there, or at least previews. I know I personally have found family out there where I Googled the name in the book, or I might have heard of the book title and I can't find it at a library, and I'll be able to get out. And if I can't get the book for free, sometimes I can get the preview of even the page I'm looking for. So it's a great thing to have a use of.
Yeah, especially where I feel like I spend a lot of money on genealogy books. When I can find one there and just read the portion I need to read for, the chapter on my county or my town, I think it's a bargain.
And you can find a lot from some of the old countries, and that's very helpful as well. They might be lists of names, and you still have to verify and cross-reference, but you can find a lot of information there. And then, of course, there's Google Earth. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you have looked for your own house on Google Earth. But think about it. You can find towns, you can find other items of interest, maybe even local churches that you've heard about that you might want to see where they are. There's all kinds of points of interest that you can look for on Google Earth.
Yeah. I use Google Earth to look for my ancestors' places of residence. And in fact, I took the 1870 census, and I could see where my great-grandfather lived, and I could see where my great-great-grandmother lived. And I did the map so I could see how far apart they lived, and they lived blocks. And then the church where they got married was smack in the middle.
Huh, I bet they're in the fan club.
They are in the fan club. I love the fan club. So maybe for those of you who are listening to us for the first time, the fan club are your friends, associates, and neighbors. And if you start to pay close attention to census documents or the witnesses in your family's weddings or their baptisms, people travel together in groups. So your fan club is your friends, associates, and neighbors. For example, my great-grandparents are on the same census record. He's like 12, she's 7. They just happen to live on the same street.
That's great. Let's go back to our search engine, shall we?
Please.
There's another one maybe people don't know about. It's called DuckDuckGo. They've been actually advertising on television quite a bit lately, so you might have seen it. And that's also a free search engine. And their claim is, we don't store your personal info. We don't follow you around with ads. We don't track you ever. So I'd say check it out. I've had some luck with it, but check it out. It might be something fun for you to play with.
Yeah, I've never heard of it. So I'm going to check it out.
You might see them on the news recently, or television ads.
I'll have to look.
All right, switching gears a little bit.
Yes. I hope that by now you're all familiar with NARA, or the National Archives and Records Administration. You could find their website at archives.gov because they're a governmental agency. And that's the nation's record keeper. Different from the Library of Congress, they keep governmental records. So they keep census information, immigration information, military information.
And photos. I will tell you, I was out searching for my grandfather. Well, I wasn't even specifically looking for him. I just kicked in the family name to see if anything would show up. And he was a leather worker. Originally, in the old days, he used to do harnesses and reins and all that. But I actually found pictures out on NARA of him and his brother owning their business, Scheuerman Company. And at the time, they were making leather pieces for the pilots in the war.
Oh, wow.
So it was Scheuerman Leather Manufacturing. Pictures are fabulous, black and white. They gave me the story, the dates. And so NARA has all kinds of different things. It's not necessarily the easiest website to search.
It can be a little cumbersome.
But have faith. It will pay off. There's some cool stuff out there.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of cool stuff, have you been on the Library of Congress website?
Not in a while.
No. So at loc.gov, the Library of Congress website, that is the nation's oldest federal cultural institution, and it serves as the research arm of Congress, but it's also the largest library in the world with more than 162 million items. They have books, they have sound recordings, they have motion pictures, they have photographs, maps, manuscripts, and more. My favorite part of the Library of Congress website is the Chronicling America section, which is their newspaper database. And they have historic newspapers from all 50 states starting in 1777 and going through to 1963. So it's nice that if you're younger than 1963, you're not considered historic, I guess.
So do you know how broad chronicling America is? I mean, does it hit the Midwest, or is it mostly
It's
focused on
every
the East?
state, and
Every
there's a
state.
drop down. You can click on your state and just search your state's newspapers. I do it all the time because just to see if I missed anything or if they've added new things, I'll just go in and I'll search all the New York newspapers, or occasionally the Louisiana newspapers or the Michigan newspapers, just to see what's
And
been
that's
updated.
fabulous, because newspapers are hard to find, and if you can, it's usually at a paid website.
Exactly.
So this is a tremendous
Yes.
resource.
Well, I could not find my third great grandfather's death notice on any of the paid newspaper websites, but I did find it on Chronicling America for free.
Yay!
Another favorite website of mine is the New York Public Library website. I would like to specifically talk about their digital collections, where you can find at digitalcollections.nypl.org. They have more than 900,000 digital items, photographs, manuscripts, maps. New York City directories are my favorite thing here.
So this is only focused on New York?
They have information throughout the country, all 50 states. But I would say if you're looking for New York information, this is probably a really good place to look. They might focus on New York, but they will have other information as well. I had a lot of luck on this website with the New York City directories, which are like the precursor to the phone book. And they start in the 1700s, and they have digitized the entire book. So you could go and search New York City directories 1800, and the whole book will show up, and you can just page through until you find your family's name, and it gives you their name, their occupation, and their address.
Fantastic.
And it's a great way to narrow down a family and track their migration, where they lived at every year and a half.
And then there's the Newberry Library.
And the Newberry Library
Is in Chicago.
And I really love the Atlas of Historic County Boundaries. And you can find that at digital.newberry with 2 R's .org/AHCB. And this is an amazing resource. Select your state, and the state will show, and there's a slide on the side. It will give you a timeline for each state's history. So let's say, for example, New York, and if you're looking at 1690, the state of New York looks vastly different. The colony of New York, I guess I should say, looks vastly different than it does in 1777, 1790, 1780, and it shows you the change in the boundaries. So if you think your family lives in New York, one census, but then they might live in Vermont in the next one, and they didn't move their house, the border changed.
And you didn't know to look in Vermont. This will tell you to do that.
Absolutely. We talked about the great library at the Family History Center in Salt Lake City. Probably the largest genealogical repository east of the Mississippi is going to be the Genealogy Center at the Allen County Public Library in Fort Wayne, Indiana. You can find their website at acpl.lib.in.us/genealogy.
Now, we'll add those to this podcast, so you'll be able to see those. But also, when you're going through this, if you don't have a pencil and you can't write them right down, you can just Google
Absolutely.
the Allen County Library genealogy, and it will pop up.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to memorize everything we're telling you, because it'll also be on the podcast.
Absolutely. And while they have a very large collection for genealogy, they do focus on Midwestern resources, and they have a very large collection of Lincoln memorabilia. So I think it might be an interesting place to go see someday and do some genealogy, maybe a weekend trip.
Absolutely.
One thing I love about the Allen County Public Library is that their staff has been offering many free virtual programs since the start of the pandemic. And they do have Ancestry Fold 3, newspapers.com, but they have a huge section devoted to genealogy.
And many libraries have licenses for sites like this. Our library,
Sure.
we have licenses for Ancestry, Fold 3, and many others. So check with your local library for an opportunity to use perhaps some paid sites free.
That's true. You can always use them at the library.
All right. So then let's move on to Find a Grave. Now, probably many of you have heard Find a Grave too. It is the best place on the internet to look for burial and other final disposition information for your family, friends, and even famous people. The site provides you tools and will let people from all over the world work together to share information and build an online virtual cemetery experience, because you can go out and take a picture of a grave and you can submit it. Many people put in memorials, and you'll find an entire history of the family or of the person attached to that memorial when you find that grave. Generally, it includes birth, death, burial information, could include pictures, could imply family information, and much more. I have found this to be a tremendously useful site. And you can access it directly, but you can also access it, for example, through Family Search or through Ancestry if you're out there and you're doing a search and it says, oh, I found this person on Find a Grave. Right from the website you're in, you can click on Find a Grave. It will take you out to it. You can pull it out. You can get a picture of the tombstone if they have it, for example, or any of the information. And if it's Ancestry you're using it for, you can save it right back into Ancestry. And then you can go back into Ancestry and keep going. Or you can go to Find a Grave. So there's lots of ways to get to Find a Grave. Been tremendously useful for me because sometimes I find that person and I don't know the rest of the family. So it's a great way to get that information. Another really important site associated with that is Billion Graves. They're free. What's different about Billion Graves is you do have to register, and they claim that they have the largest searchable GPS cemetery data. I don't know the claim myself, but they do have an awful lot of information. And again, it's the same sort of thing. People can go out, take photographs of tombstones, submit the information to create this world's largest virtual cemetery data. So it's another fantastic site. Again, it's called Billion Graves.
And a great way to walk a cemetery when you can't walk the cemetery.
Great point. Really great point. Okay, let's move on to land records.
Sounds good.
Now, land records, I'll give you the website. It's www.GLO, as in global LO records.blm.gov. Therefore, again, I suggest you either look at the end of this or Google search it. But this provides live access to federal land conveyance records for the public land states, including image access to more than 5 million federal land title records issued starting in 1788 to the present. They also have images of survey plats, field note, land status records, and controlled document index records. Again, this is not the easiest site to use. It's well worth your time if you have a hit. If your family's in a big city, you may not find you're as successful as to where maybe there's more farmland, different types of land records in the Midwest, those types of information. I personally have not had a lot of luck with it. I have had luck finding information on other sites, but not particularly with this one.
Yeah, to me, this is definitely more of somebody from the Midwest. I have not had much luck on it, but I hope to have some luck on it with the special project that we're working on.
Yeah, that is true.
So people think Facebook groups. Why do I need a Facebook group when I want to do genealogy? A great way to connect with people of like ancestries, ethnicities, families is using a Facebook group. Genealogist Catherine Wilson has curated a list of Facebook groups. If you name the ethnicity or the region, she has a Facebook group for it. And you can find her list. She's known as the social media genealogist. And you could take a look at her website. If you just Google Catherine Wilson, Willson, 2 L's in Wilson. And I belong to the New York Genealogy group. There's you name an area, there's a Facebook group for it. She has thousands of people.
And if you don't
groups.
find it, don't give up. Google it. do a search on Facebook yourself, looking for what you want. I belong to several myself, but I look particularly for German genealogy of Western New York, for example. And from that, I've gotten to sites that have told me about particular cemetery historical groups that I was able to get information to. So Facebook groups are extremely useful, and they can help you. Some of them are for translation. Some of them are for cultural information. That they have different missions, so you want to be aware of what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's also international sites, and some of those are international Facebooks, but some of them are international sites that you can locate based on the country in which you're searching. So again, for Germany, I can go out and look at archion.de. There are a lot of sites out there in a country that you're searching for that are completely free that will give you quite a bit of information, or give you leads to where you can find other information.
Absolutely. Is anyone familiar with SteveMorse.org?
Great site.
Great site. Kind of a no-frills site, not fancy, not a lot of graphics or anything. He provides tools for finding immigration records, census, vital records, and other things like calendars, like if you like a tombstone calculator, maps, foreign alphabets, and more. I think he's also really well known for his passenger list records.
Yes, which we all know immigration can be a problem. So that's a great one to look up.
That's a great one. How about Archive Grid? Has anybody used Archive Grid? It's a searchable database of primary source information, such as historical documents, books, family histories, and it will tell you where the nearest archive where that information you're looking for is available. For example, you could search Tampa, Florida, or cigar makers in Tampa, Florida, and it will tell you where there's information locally to your area. You can set it for 50 miles, 100 miles, 200 miles, and it'll tell you where certain books are located. Or
so it tells you where to go. It doesn't necessarily say, Susan, this is your grandfather.
No, it will tell you what library or archive to visit to look at the book or
Very
whatever.
handy tool.
I believe some books could be full text on there, but it would depend on the copyright and all of that. But it definitely will send you in the right direction.
Excellent.
Right. Tell you how to obtain the record. Something similar to that is the Digital Public Library of America. That is a searchable digital collections for all libraries and museums that have shared their information with them. Let's say there's a library that has a great photographic collection of historical pictures from like Utah or Minnesota or New York or Connecticut. You could go on their website and do a search for what you're looking for. The brick makers of Havistra, New York, and it'll show you not only will it show you what libraries hold those digital collections, it'll show you those digital collections. It'll show you the photographs.
So perhaps old professional groups.
Absolutely.
Old ethnic groups. Be able to find information out there.
Yeah, and fun, beautiful stuff, just great historical photos. Old maps online. I think it says it all right there. If you're looking for an old map, that's the place to go. They have an index of over 400,000 maps, and another site that I think is just really fun.
Yeah, good place to, again, gives you information so that you can move forward. Doesn't necessarily give you specific answers.
Right, but will help you get them.
Right.
Another tool in the toolbox.
Another tool in toolbox. Speaking of another tool in toolbox, Reclaim the Records. I don't know how many of you know of this one, but it's a not-for-profit. It's actually an activist group of genealogists, historians, research, and government advocates. And they identify genealogical record sets that are being restricted by the government, by government archives, libraries, and agencies. And so they file FOIA acts, the Freedom of Information Acts, and they file for these open data requests to get that public data released to the public. And if the government doesn't comply, they take them to court. And many times they win. And then once they do that, they digitize everything. They put it all online for free without any pay or usage restrictions, and it can never be locked up again. That's reclaimtherecords.org. And I will tell you, being from Buffalo, New York, it is impossible if you don't live in Buffalo to try to get records. I love the library up there, but not a lot is digitized. And there are a lot of government archives and agencies, birth records, et cetera, that you can't get or couldn't. However, Reclaim the Records has taken them to court. They have won, and I've been able to get quite a few records now since then, totally for free. So highly recommend you check in with them on a regular basis because they're always doing something. And if you're happy, they do ask for donations. It would help them.
Our last record to talk about is the Freedmen's Bureau records, and they are housed at Ancestry.com. And we've been told that Ancestry will always keep them on the free side of their paywall. So those records will remain free. They vowed that they would remain free. The Freedmen's Bureau was an agency of the War Department set up in 1865 to assist formerly enslaved people freed from slavery in obtaining relief, land, jobs, fair treatment, and education. So they have records of marriage licenses, of banking records, everything that could possibly be about information about people who were displaced due to the war, and a lot more. So this is a great place to look for if you had anybody that lived in the South, African American, or even some white people could have information in here.
So I would just go to Ancestry.com even if I don't have a membership?
Yes, you'll be able to search there.
Okay, so that's a really good thing to be aware of, folks.
Yes, I believe that a lot of people here who have been enslaved have been able to find information about their family and then maybe about where they lived during the war, before the war.
And this is a fairly new piece
Very,
of
very
information.
new. Very new.
Yeah, that's an exciting one. I'm glad to hear about it.
Me too.
So that's our list for today.
Uh-huh.
Everything we could think of. I'm sure you guys have more ideas, and we'd love to hear them.
Please, if you have another website that you like to use for free, let us know in the comments.
And other than that, we hope you enjoyed it. We hope you do a lot more research with some new things that you haven't played with before, new toys.
Very exciting stuff. And we'll be back shortly with another podcast. If you have an idea of something that you'd like to hear us talk about, please let us know in the comments. And we'll have a list of everything that we talked about today in the show notes.
So thanks for listening.
Have a great day.